Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a special guest on, Lizzie, the founder of Hey Lizzie Ann. Welcome to the show, Lizzie. How are you?
Thank you, Terrell. I'm good, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So, Lizzie, tell us a little bit about your background before you started your business, Hey Lizzie Ann.
Yeah, so prior to Hey Lizzie Ann, I worked in corporate recruiting for about 4 years, 2 years at Amazon, and then 2 years at Expedia Group. And during that time as a recruiter, I gained a pretty large following on LinkedIn. I was just sharing tips and tricks with people, and that really showed me that there was a demand for career coaching advice, which is why I started Hey Lizzie Ann kind of on the side while I was at Expedia Group.
Awesome. So, what was that journey like when you went from, doing it on the side to saying, like, hey, I'm going to build a business around this?
Yeah. So that journey was definitely a process. It wasn't something that I had in mind. I never anticipated that I would become an entrepreneur or like start my own business. It was just that when I was at Expedia Group and I gained this like large following on LinkedIn, it really showed me that people were needing the type of advice that I was giving just through my posts. I was a first generation college student. So when I was going through the recruiting process for my first job, there was so much about using LinkedIn, talking to recruiters, presenting yourself in interviews that I just really didn't know about or had social or professional network to kind of teach me. So I wanted to be that person for other people, and that's what I tried to do when I was on LinkedIn, just sharing posts about job search tips. And through that, I gained a pretty big following. I think right now I have about 33,000 followers and 6 million views on my content per year. So that showed me that people really are listening to the things that I have to say, and it's really helping them. So, in terms of starting a business around it, I really just kind of created a process on how do I use the advice that I'm giving and then kind of scale it to a way I can do it on a one-on-one basis, but then also with groups and classes as well. So they can get a little bit more info beyond just like the posts that I publish on LinkedIn.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about, what that experience was like when it was getting those first couple of clients, like when you decided to say, hey, now we're in business full time. I want to get some clients in my business. What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So finding clients wasn't the hard part because I had a pretty big following already on LinkedIn. It was just understanding how to create my niche because at first I just wanted to help everyone. But as a business, you can't be the person that helps every single person in the world. You really have to kind of specialize. So when I first started, I kind of just accepted anyone who reached out to me. And then through working with clients on one, I realized that my kind of special sauce is definitely within the tech industry and then people who are a little bit earlier in their careers. I think that's a population that I kind of resonate with the most. And I see that as a population that needs a lot of help right now because the workforce has changed so much like within the last decade. It's not like how when our parents were applying to jobs you just kind of send in a resume or you knew a friend of a friend. There's a lot of technology behind it when it comes to like the ATS and using LinkedIn. So I really like coaching this population of people, and that was the hardest part to kind of figure out.
Awesome. So speaking of that, what's involved with your services? So when a person wants to do business with Hey Lizzie Ann, what are they looking to do?
Yeah, so previously it was one on one, and it was typically people who are in the job search process wanting a new job within the next like 3-ish months. And I would work with them from doing their resume and LinkedIn to doing some interview preparation all the way to offer negotiation. So it's those types of people who are super just wanting a job ASAP. Moving forward, Hey Lizzie Ann will be focusing more on classes and workshops for people because at this point, I have too many people reaching on this. So we're going to use that same model, but then scale it to have more group classes. So you're still getting that same service, but then you're also going to be in a group of people who are already in that same boat with you, kind of looking for similar opportunities, and you can kind of learn from each other in that process, in addition to getting help from me.
Awesome. So when you think about all of that and the content that you put out or the advice that you share, where can people find you online and on social media?
Yeah, so heylizzieann.com is my website. That's where you can find all of my services, my background, and then also I have a resources page on that website, which has a resource list of free blogs and podcasts and websites that you can also follow in addition to me. In terms of posts that I publish, that's typically on my personal LinkedIn page. So linkedin.com/Hey Lizzie Ann. And then I also have a business LinkedIn page called Hey Lizzie Ann. And that typically focuses on sharing news and events within the career kind of workspace. And then I also just started a LinkedIn community called Joy. And that is a place for people who are wanting more of a community in their job search. So young professionals that are working in tech or looking to get into tech, that's another space for them.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I guess with that community, what was the thing that really sparked it for you? Like, hey, you know what, this community is something that that group needs.
Yeah, so I had a lot of people that either work with me in the past or they did a workshop with me. And I had a lot of different people who did that who seemed really similar. They didn't know each other, but I knew all of them. And I was like, it'd be really good for you guys to connect in addition to connecting with me because you're all ambitious. You're all kind of in a similar spot in terms of your job search. So I thought it would be a good idea to make a community for them. But before making the community, I did some survey work to see if people actually would want something like that. And the demand was like 100% yes. So that's why we went in that direction. You always have to listen to your customers. That's something that I learned early on in your doing a business is that you can't just push ideas that you think are good. You really have to make sure it aligns with what people actually want.
Gotcha. And I think that's a common thing that I hear a lot of entrepreneurs mention after they go through the learning lesson. But one of the questions that comes up is, how did you get comfortable with, coming to grips with that reality that, hey, you know what, even though I think this is a great idea, the customers may not, because a lot of times people look at their ideas as their babies. So if the customers don't like it, they feel like someone called their baby ugly. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it can be super personal. I dealt with that through my first failure. I tried to start a nonprofit organization a couple years before Hey Lizzie Ann, and the purpose of that organization was to connect professionals with recruiting skills with organizations who need those skills and kind of match them up that way. And it didn't work because that wasn't the problem that the nonprofits were facing. That was just something that I really wanted to do, but it wasn't starting with the customer first. So that was something that I really took to heart the next time I wanted to start something formalized. So with Hey Lizzie Ann, I started that because the demand was already there. It wasn't just an idea. It was a lot of people asking me for advice and then wanting to work with me on kind of a one-on-one basis and wanting like an official service from me. So listening to the customers and then just kind of iterating from there is the biggest and most important thing you can do as a business.
Awesome. So before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest, and you've already given us some wisdom, so I'll cut it down to just one instead of two. What's one other piece of advice that you would give entrepreneurs that you'd say, hey, you're going to be successful. This is something you have to grasp?
Yeah, I would say it would be that last point on just really iterating on your product. You have to be comfortable with change. And that means even if you put together your website or your operations, even though you spend a lot of time doing that, if the customers aren't responding to that, then you have to make a change. So you have to be comfortable with just constantly iterating and listening to your customers, getting feedback from them to craft your business so they're supporting them. You have to be comfortable with kind of letting go with whatever that you implemented and being okay with the fact that maybe what I originally designed isn't going to be the end product at the end of the day. That's something that entrepreneurs and business owners in general should really get comfortable fast.
Awesome. Well, Lizzie, thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your perspective and sharing your insight. I really enjoyed having you and looking forward to all of the viewers and the listeners to definitely look up Lizzie Ann on all of the platforms she mentioned. because you will definitely find some great information and just to see her journey and her continued success. So thank you, Lizzie Ann, for coming on the show.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.